Old Fashioned Health Network, Good Health Inside and Out. I'm your host, Jazz, here for another installment of Behind the Body. I have a very special guest and a friend, Aaron Mora, aka Ace.
What's up?
What's going on with you, sir?
Same old. What's up, baby?
I can't call it gap for the interview. So for those of you who don't know, we like to highlight individuals who have good transformations, whether mentally or physically, and Ace has a really good story that needs to be told. So, before we get into Ace, the personal trainer, the entrepreneur, the father, tell us a little bit about your history, where you from, a little bit more about your family dynamics.
Got you. Aaron Ace Moore. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, other side of the state from you. Philly and Pittsburgh, two different worlds, but same state.
Yes, sir.
But I grew up there, and I was born and raised there until circumstances took me away from there. But real quick, I grew up pretty much in the home of my grandmother, with my parents. Sometimes just like with my parents by themselves, but from about the age I can remember, 8, 9-ish, 10-ish maybe, been like at my grandma's house, and then So I grew up in a time period in a place, it was a perfect storm for everything I ended up getting involved in. My family dynamics was single mom amongst a neighborhood full of single moms and grandmas and men that was in the wind. Maybe they was in drugs, in jail, or in gangs and drugs. So
I got you. Yeah. So what about your siblings?
I got a brother, several kids from my dad only, but from my mother and my father, I have a brother who's 6 years older and a sister who's 11 years younger. And then I have siblings from my father. Okay. But we all kind of grew up together for the most part. Those of us that was from my neighborhood. Yeah.
So did you anybody from the neighborhood or your siblings? Did you look at them as any kind of a role model?
Well, my big brother absolutely was like my role model. I remember vaguely a time when I was a small kid, being in the house with my father, and I remember him being like that physically, like like a man, and I was afraid of his voice, but then he was gone, and then my brother became that. So yeah, I definitely wanted to be just like him, and I ended up just doing what he did, and trying to do it to impress him, to be a part of what he was a part of.
Right.
And that was first was sports.
Okay. So you did sports as growing up, and you did that because you saw your brother do that.
I did that because I saw my brother do that, and I knew that my brother was well respected, amongst our peers, older or younger, amongst adults in the community. He was well respected and liked.
Right.
So I wanted to be just like him, and sports was his thing when I was a kid.
Okay. So what happened that did that stop at some point? Did your brother leave, or did something else happen?
In the time frame we was in, like everybody was trying to make a dollar.
You still in time frame, by the way.
Yeah. Here's the difference, right? We all out here trying to make a dollar now.
Yeah.
But when you trying to make a dollar because you trying to elevate your life, or when you need to make a dollar because you're trying to survive, it's two different mentalities.
You're right about that.
So we was in a survival state.
Gotcha.
So to do that, sometimes you had to earn income at ages and points of your life to take care of yourself, when normally our socioeconomic surroundings are supposed to provide for us.
Right.
We were in an environment where we had to provide for ourselves, so my brother had to do the same, and ultimately that led him to the penitentiary.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So when that happened, that probably was kind of a huge blow as far as somebody to look up to.
It was, because ultimately he was my caretaker at that point.
Okay. So after your brother got incarcerated, I guess you had looked up to him, but that was kind of a big blow, right?
It was a big blow. It changed my dynamic a lot. And when a person is the person that provides you certain things like sneakers and things that kids want in our neighborhood, and he was young enough to understand that and providing those resources. Once they were gone, certain people from the elements stepped in. Right.
Kind of filled that role.
Fulfilled that role, knew that there was a void, and it all came from love. Like, I don't think it was a systematic approach to anything. I think they was like, well, we're gonna look out for you because your brother gone.
Out of respect.
Yeah.
Right. So once that element stepped in, let's talk about what happened that got you in trouble with the law. How did that go down, and what was that like?
Well, the very first time I got in trouble with the law, through through committing crimes for money, I would say, it was drug trafficking charge. You know what I'm saying? I'm out there, I'm serving packs, I'm hand to hand serving drug addicts at that point. So, you run into a lot of issues like that. You on camera, you serving undercovers, you're constantly running from narcs. So I went to jail easily. You know what I'm saying?
That's kind of easy right there. So got caught up in that life, the wrong side. So how long were you incarcerated?
Well, the very first time, slap on the wrist. I did maybe a month in juvenile while they figured it out. I got probation. But that was a cycle that repeated. Like, let's just say that was maybe when I was 13. By the time I went for my second long-term incarceration when I was 16, I already had accumulated like 8 felonies. So,
wow.
Yeah.
All right, so then that led to obviously the longer stint, right?
The first one. And, when I came home from that, I was like 19 years old.
Okay.
And had spent time in places with people that were never coming home. So it changed my mind frame. At that point, I wanted to get rich in the streets.
Gotcha.
So I changed from being like just a knucklehead gang member to somebody that wanted to accumulate wealth from the drug game. So that's what changed around that time.
So you got a plan of attack. You want to get wealth. This is how you want to get it.
Right.
So where did that lead you?
To the United States federal prison system.
Gotcha.
And a very short time after, I was in my early 20s by then. Seemed like forever.
Right.
But it was only like 4 or 5 years later. I got indicted. Drug trafficking. The whole thing with the federal government ended up getting like 20 counts. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
From Lord knows what. But I ended up doing like 10 years.
Okay.
Going from 22 to 32 inside the United States Penitentiary, and the federal system. I grew up.
Gotcha.
I changed my thinking, and that's what led me to where I am now.
So before we move on to the next part, while you were in there, what was a turning point to say, all right, I'm going to use this time for something other than just not using it?
The funny part about that, the catalyst in that was when I first came in.
When you first came in?
When I first came in, I started to, understand, I just told you the story. It's from my first rodeo, obviously.
Yeah.
So we were in a county jail, but we were on maximum security because we were under United States Marshal Detainers, which is a federal hold.
Okay.
You got 2 days to leave the unit, Tuesday and Thursday. You can make one of 2 choices. You can go to the basketball and play big gym basketball, which it was called.
Okay.
Do some push-ups and pull-ups and shit.
Gotcha.
Or you could go to the law library.
So you got 2 options.
You got 2 options.
All right.
You got 2 days to exercise them.
Okay.
I know me, I wasn't about to snitch, and I was not about to lay down and let these people sentence me to 20, 30 years on no plea and not have no way to come back. Okay. So my whole mentality was I gotta fight. I grew up fighting and I'm fighting.
Got you.
So, once I realized that shooting hoops and doing push-ups and pull-ups and dips and shadow boxing with the homies wasn't going to quite help me not get life in prison, I chose to do my time in the law library.
From the gate, from the jump.
From the very beginning of before I was sentenced to my time, I understood that you have to use this time wisely.
Okay.
And that was the catalyst in that.
Wow. So did that help you in getting out earlier?
It saved my life, actually, Jazz.
Okay.
Not to get too deep into federal law. I don't want to sound like one of the jailhouse lawyers, you know what I'm saying? But let's just say this. Because of all of those felonies that I told you that I had a very long and extensive juvenile past.
Right.
But as an adult, when I started getting money, I didn't have that many infractions. I had money to make those infractions go away.
Gotcha.
They wanted to open up my juvenile record and use it as my sentencing guidelines based on my criminal history. But they wanted to use felonies from when I was 12 and 13, and at this time I was 22. I didn't know the law. My lawyer didn't give a damn. So had I not found the sentencing guidelines statute that said that they could not do that,
Right.
my sentencing guidelines would have started at 240 months and ended at 480 months. Because that's how your time is ran off. Point being, I found in that law library, in one of those books, during the time I could have been playing basketball,
Right.
that they could not do that. So I had a whole new sentencing guideline applied to me, which allowed me to have a guideline range now
Right.
of 86 months to 129.
That's crazy.
All because,
you chose the law library
yes.
and not shooting hoops.
So did it help me? Yes. It saved my life. I would still be in there right now.
Whew.
Yeah.
Education is key.
Yeah.
Man, especially being an athlete all your life.
Of course I wanted to run
Of course
ball.
you wanted to do that, right?
Of course I want to de-stress.
Yeah.
But I would rather not distress than live in distress for the rest of my life. You feel me?
I feel you. There you go. Man, all right, we're going to be back with part 2. Part 1, obviously, that was a great story. We got the second half of the transformation. Stay tuned.
When you decide to cooperate with the federal government and provide substantial assistance,
Yeah,
quote unquote, rat,
yeah,
they make something called a downward departure from the guideline range. So your guideline range and mandatory minimum sentencing range may say, for this crime, based on your criminal history, it's a point system, rows and columns. Wherever they meet, that's where you are. We can go downward from that because you helped us. So now we sentence you as a first-time offender under a lesser offense.
Right.
So where your original was over here on Pillar 3 and crime down here on Section 28, we're going to sentence you as if you had a crime that was only offense level 10 on seriousness and a first-time offender. Boop, 48 months. You get the drug program, you're home in 2.5 years with halfway house. You don't cooperate, boop, 240 to 360 months. You lose at trial, you get 360.